when my son's fiancée told me I was no longer welcome at their engagement party because I was supposedly making the guests uncomfortable, I refused to leave. Then she lied to my son, claiming I had grabbed her arm and threatened her, trying to get me removed by force. I simply smiled and said, "I'll go, but only with you, son." When I showed him what I had been keeping secret, everything changed. The engagement was called off that very night. Before I continue, subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are right now. I pulled my truck into the parking lot of the Thornhill Country Club 40 minutes before the party was supposed to start. The late September air carried that distinctive Ontario smell of fallen leaves and distant wood smoke, crisp enough to make the collar of my dress shirt feel tight against my neck. I hadn't worn this suit since Margaret's funeral 3 years ago, and the fabric seemed to remember grief better than celebration. Through the rearview mirror, I adjusted my tie for the 4th time. My hands were steadier than I expected them to be. Derek was getting engaged tonight. My only son, the boy I raised mostly alone after Margaret's passing, now 32 years old and building his own life. That should have been enough to calm my nerves. But something about Vanessa had been troubling me for the 11 months she'd been living in my house. Not in any way I could explain to Derek, just small things that accumulated like dust in corners nobody swept. The way she'd excuse herself to take calls at odd hours. The receipts I'd found for hotels in Niagara Falls when she claimed to be visiting her mother in London, Ontario. The way her eyes went cold when she thought nobody was watching. I stepped out of the truck and walked toward the entrance. The venue sprawled across manicured lawns, with its stone facade and expensive landscaping designed to impress. Inside, the cocktail hour was already underway. Crystal chandeliers caught the evening light through tall windows. A string quartet played something classical near the bar. About 60 guests clustered in small groups, champagne flutes catching reflections. Vanessa stood near the appetizer table, phone pressed between both hands. She wore a fitted blue dress, something designer and elegant. Her thumbs moved rapidly across the screen. When she looked up and saw me, her expression shifted. Not surprise, not a smile. Something harder, colder. She turned her back without acknowledgement. I made my way toward the bar, accepting greetings from relatives I hadn't seen in years. Derek's university friends gathered near the champagne fountain. I recognized Bill Fraser, a family friend and retired Crown prosecutor, watching the room with the careful attention of someone who'd spent 40 years reading people. Vanessa kept texting. Every few minutes, she'd step away from whoever was speaking to her, shoulders hunched over her phone, fingers flying. Her body language looked like someone conducting business, not celebrating. 30 minutes passed. The string quartet shifted to something lighter and more festive. I stayed near the bar, forcing small talk with a cousin whose name I'd forgotten. Vanessa moved through the crowd, but never approached me, never made eye contact. Then she did. Her heels clicked against the marble floor with deliberate rhythm. She didn't lower her voice. "Harold, honestly, you're making people uncomfortable." Her nose wrinkled visibly. She took a step backward, as if proximity to me was physically painful. "I don't know what it is, but you're ruining the atmosphere here. This is my engagement party. I need you to leave. Now." Conversations around us faltered. The elderly woman beside me covered her mouth. A groomsman across the room exchanged glances with another. The event coordinator froze mid-step, a bottle of champagne in hand. The string quartet kept playing, oblivious, creating a surreal soundtrack to the public humiliation. I kept my voice steady, and my hands still at my sides. "Vanessa, I showered this morning, and I'm wearing the cologne Derek gave me last Christmas. I'm the groom's father. I have every right to be here, and I'm not going anywhere." Her face flushed red. "You're embarrassing everyone. Look at how people are staring. Derek deserves better than this on his special night. Go home, please." The whispers started then, fragments floating toward me from different directions. "Did you hear what she said? And poor man, how humiliating." "And what's happening?" Someone asked if the party was still on. I looked her directly in the eyes. "This is Derek's special night, not just yours. And I'm staying for my son." Vanessa's jaw tightened. For a moment I thought she'd say something more, but instead she turned sharply on her heels. The click of them against the marble sounded like small caliber gunshots. She disappeared down the hallway toward the private rooms. Derek had been standing with his best man near the entrance. He glanced between his retreating fiancée and his father. He was opening and closing his hands at his sides. His mouth formed words I couldn't hear from the distance, but I read his lips. "I'm sorry." Then he followed Vanessa. The guests remained frozen in their little clusters. Conversations replaced by uncomfortable silence and sideways glances. The string quartet finally noticed something was wrong and let their current piece trail off unfinished. I stood there, suit collar still too tight, and understood with absolute certainty that this was exactly what Vanessa wanted. Not just my absence, something bigger, something calculated. The spring air that had smelled so pleasant an hour ago now felt suffocating. 20 minutes passed like 20 hours. I stayed near the windows, watching the parking lot. My jaw was clenched so tight my teeth ached. Derek hadn't returned. The scheduled start time for the formal announcement came and went. Guests shifted uncomfortably, checking watches, whispering. Some had drifted toward the main hall, then retreated when nobody appeared to organize them. Bill Frazier approached with a glass of water I hadn't asked for. "Harold, are you all right?" "I'm fine, Bill." He didn't believe me, but he nodded and stepped away. Then Vanessa emerged from the hallway. 2 bridesmaids supported her on either side. Her mascara ran in dark tracks down her cheeks, and beneath her left eye, a bruise was turning purple and dark. She moved slowly, as if every step caused pain. The crowd parted. Someone gasped. "He followed me." Vanessa's voice cracked on the words. She raised a trembling hand to point at me. I just wanted him to leave quietly, and he grabbed my arm, told me I had no right to ask him to go, and then he hit me. Look at my face. The room erupted. Not in sound, but in movement. Several guests moved toward Vanessa protectively. Others stared at me with expressions ranging from shock to disgust. A groomsman stepped between Vanessa and me, as if I might attack again. Derek appeared behind Vanessa, face pale. "Dad, what did you do?" His voice shook with anger and something worse than anger. "Betrayal. You hit her at our engagement party? Leave. I don't want to see you right now. Just go." I didn't move. I didn't defend myself. I didn't raise my voice. The evidence was in my truck, and arguing here would accomplish nothing. "I'm leaving, Derek." I kept my tone measured, calm. "But only with you, son. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Give me 5 minutes." Something in my voice must have reached him, because Derek looked at Vanessa, then at me, and nodded once. He followed me through the front door. Behind us, the murmur of shocked conversation grew louder. Outside, the evening air had cooled. The parking lot lights cast everything in sodium orange. I unlocked my phone with steady hands and opened the video file. "This better be good, Dad. Vanessa's in there crying because of you." I cut him off, extending the phone. "Then tell me who's lying." Derek took the phone. The screen showed our front porch. Timestamp from the previous night, 11:47 p.m. Vanessa appeared in frame, then a man. Not Derek. They kissed. Not a greeting kiss. The kind of kiss that tells stories about what would come next. Derek's face went slack. When was this?" "Last night. The private investigator has been following her for 2 months. There's more. Photos." I swiped to the gallery. Photo after photo. Vanessa and the same man. I'd learned his name was Marcus. At restaurants, entering hotels in Niagara-on-the-Lake, sitting in his car outside coffee shops in Mississauga. Each photo dated and time-stamped. 2 months of documentation. Derek saw himself getting engaged in the timeline of these photographs. Saw himself planning a party while his fiancée built a separate life. "I installed cameras 3 weeks ago," I said quietly, when I started noticing things. "The investigator's name is Peter Chen. He's been thorough." Derek's hands trembled as he held the phone. He watched the porch video again. The timestamp glowed in the corner. 11:47 p.m., less than 24 hours before his engagement party. He handed the phone back without a word and walked toward the venue entrance. I stayed by the truck and watched him disappear inside. 3 minutes later, I heard the shift in the crowd noise. Not the hum of surprise from before, but something sharper, more confused. Derek's voice carried through the open doors. Not shouting, but somehow worse. So low that people had to quiet down to hear. "Who is Marcus, Vanessa?" Silence. Then Vanessa's voice, defensive. "What? Derek, what are you talking about? Your father is obviously trying to—" I saw the video. Derek's voice cut through her words like a blade through silk. "From our house last night." "Who is Marcus?" I couldn't see them from where I stood, but I could imagine Vanessa's face, the calculations happening behind her eyes. She didn't know about the cameras, didn't know about Peter Chen and his 2 months of photographs. She'd built her plan, assuming I was merely an obstacle, not an adversary. The sounds from inside shifted again. Movement, raised voices, confusion. The event coordinator appeared at the door, phone pressed to her ear, looking distressed. Guests began filtering out gradually, first a few, then more. They walked quickly to their cars, not meeting my eyes, probably wondering what kind of family drama they'd witnessed. Bill Fraser appeared. He stopped beside my truck. "Harold." Just my name, but it had weight. "Bill, the engagement is off." "Yes." Derek's in shock. "Vanessa left through the back. She's claiming you manipulated the video somehow, but nobody's listening. Everyone's leaving." I nodded. "Where's Derek?" "Still inside. Sitting in one of the ceremony chairs. Just sitting. I should go to him. Give him a few minutes. He needs to process." He touched my arm briefly. "I'm sorry this happened, but I'm glad you had proof. Without it, I'd be the man who attacked his son's fiancée at their engagement party. The story would have been written, permanent, as scars." "Thanks, Bill." He nodded and walked to his car. I stood in the parking lot as the venue emptied, watching strangers leave with stories they'd retell for years. The country club's lights glowed against the darkening sky, illuminating empty tables set for celebration, champagne going flat in abandoned glasses. This was just the beginning. Vanessa hadn't just been having an affair. She'd manufactured that bruise, planned that accusation with theatrical precision. She wanted me arrested, wanted Derek completely isolated from me, which meant whatever she was planning went beyond simple infidelity. I needed more than photographs now. I needed strategy, legal counsel, documentation of everything. Because Vanessa Morrison had just declared war, and she'd done it in front of 60 witnesses. The difference was, she didn't know I'd been preparing for battle since the first day I suspected the truth. I spent the night at a motel off the 401 near Whitby, one of those places with thin walls and a neon sign that buzzed like a dying insect. Sleep came in snatches. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Derek's face in that parking lot, watching the video, understanding that his entire relationship had been built on lies. The next morning, I drove home. The mid-morning sun softened the asphalt. My house sat in Oakville, a neighborhood where retired firefighters like me could afford something solid after 35 years of service. Margaret and I bought it in 2001. The mortgage burning ceremony had been one of our last celebrations before the cancer took her. Vanessa's car sat in the driveway. I sat in my truck, hands on the wheel, processing this. She should have been gone, packed up, and fled in shame after being exposed in front of 60 witnesses. Instead, her silver sedan sat there like a statement. The front door was unlocked. I found Vanessa in the living room, on the couch, my couch, coffee in hand, scrolling through her phone. She didn't stand when I entered, didn't even look up immediately. "You need to pack your things and leave today." She looked up then, and her expression held no trace of the tears and victimhood from yesterday. Just calm, almost amusement. "I don't think so, Harold. I've been living here for over a year. I have tenants' rights. You can't just throw me out." "Tenants' rights? You're not paying rent. You're Derek's guest, and he's no longer here." Vanessa set down her phone deliberately. "Derek is a co-owner of this property. I'm his guest, and he invited me to stay. You'll need a court order to evict me, and that takes months. Maybe longer." Co-owner. The word hit me like a punch. I walked to my home office, past the photographs of Margaret on the walls, past Derek's childhood drawings I'd never taken down. My hands shook as I opened the filing cabinet and found the property documents I hadn't examined in years. There it was, the deed. My name, yes, but beside it, Derek Anthony Mitchell, joint ownership, 50-50. I remembered now. 4 years ago, Derek's business had failed. A tech startup that burned through investor money and left him $40,000 in debt. I helped him, sold some investments, gave him the cash, told him to rebuild carefully. His accountant, a young man fresh out of business school, had suggested this arrangement. Tax optimization, he'd called it. Estate planning benefits. I signed without much thought. Derek was my son. The house would eventually be his anyway. Now that decision trapped me. I called Derek 17 times that afternoon. Each attempt went to voicemail. On attempt 18, he picked up. "Dad, I can't. I can't do this right now. I'm at a hotel. I need time to think. Don't call me for a while." Traffic noise behind his voice. He was driving somewhere, anywhere, just moving. "Derek, we need to talk about the house, about what happens next." "I don't care about the house right now. I just can't." The line went dead. I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Margaret and I had breakfast for 18 years, and opened my laptop, methodical. That's how I solved problems for 35 years as a fire captain. Break them into components, find solutions, build systematically, search for lawyers, reviews, specializations. I made calls, explained situations briefly, scheduled consultations. By 4 in the afternoon, I had an appointment with David Thornton for the following morning. Family law specialist, excellent reviews, office in downtown Toronto. By 7, my phone rang. Peter Chen, the investigator. "Mr. Mitchell, I found something else. Marcus Crawford, the man from your footage, he's a mortgage broker, licensed, but with a history. Fraud charges, 2016, served 14 months, out on parole." I stood and walked to the window. Vanessa's car still sat in the driveway. A mortgage broker with my house deed in his sights. Not a coincidence, sir. I don't think so. Can you keep digging? Yes. Everything you can find on Marcus Crawford, who he associates with, what properties he's handled, any complaints or investigations. And on Vanessa, look into her background before she met Derek. Something tells me this wasn't spontaneous. I'll have more in a few days. After he hung up, I walked through my house. Every room held memories of Margaret, of raising Derek alone after she passed, of building a life that felt solid and permanent. Vanessa had contaminated all of it. She sat in my living room like an occupying force, protected by paperwork I'd signed in good faith. But I'd spent 35 years running into burning buildings, calculating risks, reading situations where seconds mattered. I knew how to identify weaknesses in structures. And every structure, no matter how solid it appeared, had vulnerabilities. Vanessa thought she'd won because she had legal protection. She thought Derek's silence gave her leverage. She thought I was just an old man who'd lost his son's trust. She hadn't considered that I'd been planning since the first time I saw her texting at midnight, claiming work emergencies. She knew nothing about the cameras, the investigator, the 2 months of evidence I'd already gathered. This was just beginning, and I had the patience of decades watching fires burn themselves out, waiting for the right moment to advance. David Thornton's office occupied the 20th floor of a Bay Street tower, with windows overlooking the CN Tower. The waiting room smelled of leather and old books, legal volumes lining the walls, spines aligned with a precision that would have satisfied my methodical nature. He was 55, according to his website, with gray at his temples and a handshake that was firm. He gestured toward the conference room and sat across from me with a yellow legal pad. "Mr. Mitchell, tell me everything." I did. The engagement party disaster, the false assault accusation, the hidden camera evidence, Vanessa's refusal to leave, the ownership complication I discovered, Peter's investigative work including Marcus Crawford's criminal history. I showed him the video, the photographs, the deed. He took notes throughout, stopping me occasionally for pointed questions. When I finished, he set down his pen and leaned back. "Mr. Mitchell, I'll be direct. The ownership situation complicates this significantly. We can't simply evict her as a trespasser when she's arguably a guest of a co-owner. But Derek doesn't support her claim. He's not here. His silence isn't the same as opposition. In court, her lawyer will argue that previously granted permission remains in effect until explicitly revoked. And Derek would have to be the one to revoke it. I felt the weight of that reality settle. What about the assault lie? She accused me in front of 60 people. David leaned forward. That's our strongest point. Defamation with multiple witnesses. If we can prove she manufactured the bruise and the accusation, we establish a pattern of deception. It won't get her out immediately, but it damages her credibility and everything else. How do we prove it? Witness timeline. The venue likely has security cameras. I'll subpoena that footage. And you said there were people who could confirm your location. Bill Frazier. He's a retired Crown prosecutor, family friend. He saw me by the windows when Vanessa came back with that bruise. Several others saw me too. David made notes. I'll need their contact information. We'll build a timeline that proves you couldn't have attacked her. Within 3 days, he filed 2 motions. One sought to evict Vanessa as an unauthorized long-term guest whose implied invitation had expired. The second was a defamation lawsuit based on the false assault accusation. His paralegal handled the court filings while David contacted witnesses. Bill Frazier agreed immediately when I called. Harold, of course I'll testify. You were standing by the windows when she came back out. I saw you there the whole time. That girl did that bruise to herself somehow. 3 other guests, 2 of Derek's university friends and a cousin from Margaret's side of the family, also agreed. They'd all seen me in the cocktail area. The timeline made Vanessa's accusation impossible. Then Vanessa counterattacked. A process server arrived at the house on a Thursday afternoon. I was in the kitchen when the doorbell rang. Before I could reach it, Vanessa opened the door, accepted an envelope, and turned to me with a slight smile. This is for you. She handed me the papers. Counterclaim alleging verbal agreements with co-owner Derek Mitchell for indefinite residence. Counterclaim against Harold Mitchell for harassment, emotional distress, and creation of a hostile living environment. Lawyer, Sarah Webb. Tenant rights specialist. The law protects residents, Harold, even ones you don't like. You're going to learn that fighting me was a mistake. I kept my voice even. Get off my porch. It's Derek's porch too, and mine for now. She walked back inside, leaving the door open behind her. Both lawyers attempted to contact Derek for statements. He responded via email. Brief, cold messages that hurt more than any argument. I won't provide statements or testimony for either side. Vanessa was living there with my permission. Beyond that, I have nothing to say. Leave me alone. I read those words 3 times, sitting at my laptop. My son, reduced to digital distance, too hurt to engage, too overwhelmed to take sides, confirming just enough to complicate everything. David called me back to his office 2 weeks after our initial meeting. The view from his conference room showed evening traffic crawling along the Gardner Expressway. I want you to understand what we're facing. Best case scenario, we have a hearing in 6 weeks, more likely 8 to 10. Then there's evidence, presentation, possible adjournments, appeals. You're looking at months of her living in your house. Months, possibly longer. Ontario law favors established residency. She's been there over a year. That matters. I watched the traffic below. All those people heading home to their normal lives, their uncomplicated living situations. What are our chances? David's expression maintained its professionalism, but I saw the honesty behind it. The defamation case is solid. We have witnesses, a timeline, proof of lies. We'll win that. The eviction is much harder. Sarah Webb is good at what she does. She'll argue tenant protections, verbal agreements, Derek's co-ownership. Even without Derek's active support, his written confirmation that Vanessa was living there with permission gives her legal standing. So she stays while we fight. Unless Derek explicitly revokes his permission and testifies to it. Without his involvement, we're navigating around a central figure who won't engage. I thought about Derek in some anonymous hotel room, or maybe back at work trying to push through heartbreak. He'd lost his fiancée, learned his father had been investigating her for months without telling him. He'd watched his engagement party become a public spectacle of lies and exposure. And now both sides needed him to take a position when all he wanted was distance from the disaster. Then we proceed without him, I said. Document everything Vanessa does. Every interaction, every expense she incurs, every day she occupies my property. Build the case, piece by piece. David nodded. That's exactly what we'll do. This is going to be a war of attrition, Mr. Mitchell. She's counting on you giving up, settling, maybe even selling the property and splitting the proceeds. She wants you worn down. I stood and gathered my copies of the legal documents. I spent 35 years running toward danger when everyone else ran away. I understand long-term projects. At the door, I turned. One more thing. The investigator discovered that Vanessa's boyfriend is a mortgage broker with a fraud conviction. That's not coincidence. There's a bigger plan here. Keep looking. David made a note. I'll document everything in advance. Everything she says, does. Every person who visits. You're gathering evidence for months from now. I drove home in the darkness, knowing Vanessa would be there, occupying my space, confident in her legal protections. But confidence built on deception always had cracks, and I'd spent a lifetime learning how to find them. 3 weeks after the legal battle began, my phone rang while I was reviewing property tax records in the small apartment I'd rented near Yonge and Eglinton. Peter Chen's number. Mr. Mitchell, I have something. It's bigger than we thought. Vanessa and Marcus weren't just having an affair. They've been running a mortgage fraud scheme, and your house was the target. 20 minutes later, I sat across from Peter in a coffee shop in Scarborough, far from anywhere Vanessa might be. He'd chosen a booth in the corner, away from other customers. 2 cups of black coffee steamed between us, both untouched. Show me. Peter slid a manila folder across the table. Phone records. Obtained legally through court order. Read the conversation from April 15th. That's 6 weeks before the engagement party. I opened the folder. Transcripts. Pages of them, organized by date. Every conversation between 2 phone numbers identified as belonging to Vanessa Morrison and Marcus Crawford. My hands tightened on the paper as I began to read. April 15th, 11:47 p.m. Vanessa. Derek's completely on board with the house being in joint ownership. He actually believes he's helping his dad with taxes. The old man has no idea we're setting up the biggest payday of our lives. Marcus. And he'll agree to the sale? You're sure? Vanessa. I can convince Derek to do anything. Once we're married, I give it 6 months, and then I start talking about how we need our own place, how his dad's house has too many memories. Marcus. Derek doesn't suspect anything? Vanessa. This is going to work perfectly. I turned more pages. Conversation after conversation, spanning 4 months. Discussion of market values, appraisal timing, how to present the sale to Derek as a financially smart decision. Vanessa laughing about how trusting and sweet Derek was. Marcus explaining how his company would handle the purchase and then flip the property within weeks. My jaw worked silently. I went back, reread sections, my methodical mind cataloging the evidence. This wasn't passion or poor judgment. This was premeditation, calculation, betrayal on an industrial scale. They planned this for months. My voice came out tighter than I intended. The entire relationship was a con. Peter leaned forward. Years, actually. Vanessa targeted Derek specifically. She researched his property records, knew about the joint ownership arrangement, knew the house was paid off. This wasn't chance. He pulled out another document. A property appraisal, professional, detailed, commissioned by Peter himself through the detective agency. Your house is worth $850,000. The planned sale price to Marcus's shell company, Lakeshore Property Solutions Incorporated, was going to be $520,000. They'd present it as a quick sale to avoid capital gains complications. I did the math automatically. $330,000. That's what they planned to steal from my son, from me, from everything Margaret and I had built. How did you get the court order for the phone records? I took what we had. The romance evidence, Marcus's prior fraud conviction, the pattern of similar transactions in his business history, and presented an affidavit to a judge. Probable cause for criminal conspiracy. It took 2 weeks to process, but it came through. I gathered the papers carefully, making sure nothing creased or tore. Evidence, proof. Not speculation or suspicion, but documented conspiracy. I need to see David immediately. Peter nodded. Figured you would. I've already sent him copies. He's expecting your call. I left my coffee untouched and drove straight to David's office. His secretary tried to intercept me. "Mr. Mitchell, he's with a client." But David saw my face through his office window and waved me in. We spread everything across his conference table. The original detective report, the hidden camera video evidence, the phone transcripts, the property appraisal, Marcus's business records, showing multiple similar frauds over the past 5 years. David photographed each document with his phone, made copies, began drafting something on his laptop. "Harold, this changes everything." He looked up from the screen. "We're not just fighting an eviction battle. We're looking at conspiracy to commit fraud. Possibly wire fraud, if any communications crossed provincial lines. Attempted theft by deception. This is criminal. What do? We file a criminal referral with the Crown's office. I'll prepare a package with all this evidence. The civil proceedings continue, but now we have criminal exposure hanging over both of them. Vanessa's lawyer won't be able to ignore this." I looked at the transcripts again. Vanessa's words about Derek not suspecting anything. My son. Hearing them mock him like that, will that be enough? Will this finally open his eyes? If this doesn't, nothing will. When do you want to show him? I stared at my computer screen, frozen on an image of Vanessa and Marcus laughing at my kitchen table. The documents spread between them like blueprints for a heist. Soon. But first, I want to make sure we have everything locked down legally. I want them charged, David. Both of them. Criminal charges that stick. David's reply was unhesitating. Then he has no choice but to see the truth. I'll coordinate with Peter. If Vanessa and Marcus are as bold as this shows, they'll make mistakes. Con artists always do. After I hung up with David, I called Peter. Peter, Derek's chosen, Vanessa's side. She told him Marcus was stalking her, that she was a victim. He believes it. Despite the phone transcripts, he hasn't seen them. I didn't show him. He wasn't ready to hear it. He would have dismissed it as fabricated or taken out of context. Peter was quiet a moment. So we need something undeniable, something even she can't spin. Exactly. Keep watching them both. Vanessa thinks she's won Derek's protection. People get careless when they feel safe. After both calls, I sat at my small kitchen table and ate dinner mechanically. Leftover takeout heated in the microwave, tasting like cardboard. Outside my window, Toronto's lights sprawled across the lakeshore. Thousands of homes where families gathered without the weight of betrayal and legal warfare. Derek was wrong, but he wasn't evil. He was exhausted, heartbroken, desperate for a solution. Vanessa had offered him what he needed most. A narrative where their relationship could be saved, where his father was the problem, not her. It was easier to believe one person was wrong than to accept that everything he'd built his life around was fraudulent. Understanding that didn't make it less painful, but understanding informed strategy. Derek would need evidence so overwhelming that denial became impossible. Not transcripts he could question, not detective reports he could dismiss as biased. Something direct, something undeniable. Vanessa and Marcus had been careful so far, but they were now trapped between legal pressure and Derek's protection. Trapped people made desperate decisions, and desperate decisions created opportunities. I washed my plate, dried it methodically, then went back to my boxes of evidence and started reviewing everything again. Engineers solve problems by understanding every variable, every stress point, every possible failure mode. Vanessa thought she'd secured Derek's support, thought that changed the equation. She was right that it changed things, just not in the way she imagined. 1 week after Derek's confrontation with me, Vanessa filed a formal complaint with the Toronto Police Service. Domestic violence, a pattern of harassment. She claimed the bruise from the party was recent, that she felt unsafe in the shared dwelling, that I'd been increasingly aggressive. 2 patrol cars arrived on a Tuesday morning. I was checking my mail when they pulled up. Neighbors appeared in windows like witnesses to a crime scene. Vanessa met the officers at the door. Tissues already in hand. They separated us. Vanessa got the living room. I got the garage. "Sir, a complaint has been filed against you for domestic violence. Can you give me your side?" I stood in my own garage, surrounded by tools I'd collected over 35 years, and gave them the facts. The bruise happened 6 weeks ago at the engagement party. She manufactured it herself. I had witnesses, Bill Frazier, and 3 others who could confirm I never touched her. This was part of an ongoing property dispute. We'll need the names and contact information of those witnesses. I provided everything: phone numbers, addresses, the court case numbers. The officers took notes, expressions professionally neutral. They'd heard stories from both sides before. They knew truth often lay somewhere in between. Vanessa cried, showing photos on her phone from angles that made the fading bruise look recent and violent. The investigation closed within 3 days. Inconsistencies in the timeline, witness statements, lack of physical evidence. But the complaint stayed on record, a permanent suggestion that I was dangerous. The damage spread faster than facts could correct it. I discovered the spray paint 2 mornings later, stepped out to get the newspaper with my coffee. Orange letters across my mailbox. Abuser. Visible from the street, bright and accusatory. I stood there, coffee going cold in my hand, and methodically photographed it from every angle before getting cleaning supplies from the garage. A neighbor I'd known for 20 years crossed the street rather than pass beside me on the sidewalk. Another neighbor loading groceries into her car saw me and hurried inside without her usual wave. I heard whispers at the hardware store. That's him. The police were at his house. Derek's message arrived that afternoon. I'm moving back to the house. Vanessa needs support during this difficult time. Please respect our space. Our space. My home for 22 years. Where Margaret and I raised him, where her photos still hung on the walls. It had become our space, shared with the woman trying to destroy me. He moved back 3 days later. I watched from my bedroom window as his truck backed into the driveway and he and Vanessa carried boxes inside, laughing at something, touching each other's arms affectionately. He never looked up at my window. For 2 weeks, I attempted to cohabitate. Slept in my room with the door locked. Used the kitchen at 5:30 in the morning before they woke. Worked in my garage workshop on projects I didn't need just to have somewhere to exist. Vanessa made every moment hostile. Changed the lock on the master bedroom, now hers and Derek's room. Played music late into the night, bass thumping through the walls. Invited Marcus over for coffee without hiding it, making sure I saw them sitting together on my couch, his arm draped casually over the cushions. One night, passing them in the hallway, I heard Vanessa whisper to Marcus, "He's barely here anymore. Few more weeks, and he'll probably give up and sign everything over. This is working perfectly." I found the apartment the next day, a 1-bedroom in a complex near the 401, 20 minutes from Oakville. Functional, anonymous, temporary. The leasing agent asked about my previous residence. "Family complications," I said, and she didn't press. I called David from the apartment parking lot after signing the lease. "I can't stay in that house with them. I need to find somewhere else." "Don't let them force you out of your own home, Harold. That could hurt our legal position. I'm not giving up the house. I'll keep paying everything. Mortgage is already done, but utilities, taxes, insurance. I maintain ownership, but I need to be strategic, and I need better evidence." "What kind of evidence?" "The kind even Derek can't rationalize away." I moved out on a Saturday morning while they were gone. Clothes, laptop, essential toiletries, everything else stayed. Furniture, Margaret's photos, my tools, 40 years of accumulated life. This wasn't final surrender. It was tactical retreat. Before I left, I installed 4 new cameras, professional, disguised as everyday objects. A wall clock in the kitchen, electrical outlets in the living room and hallway, a smoke detector in the entryway. Motion activated, cloud uploaded, accessible from my phone. Nearly impossible to detect unless you knew exactly what to look for. Vanessa thought she'd won. She'd damaged my reputation, secured Derek's protection, driven me from my own home. Now she felt safe. Safe people made mistakes. I closed the door behind me for what I thought might be the last time as a resident. But I'd learned something fighting fires for 35 years. Sometimes you had to let parts of a structure burn to save the whole. The surveillance system went live as soon as I left. Whatever happened in that house now, I would know. And eventually, so would Derek. 3 weeks into my new routine, I watched the recordings every night after work. Laptop open on my small apartment kitchen counter, reviewing footage while I ate microwaved dinners. Most of it was mundane. Vanessa scrolling her phone, Derek coming home tired from his IT job downtown. The two of them watching television. Then on a Tuesday morning, Vanessa started searching. I was drinking coffee, getting ready for the day, when the motion alert buzzed on my phone. Vanessa moved through the house systematically, looking behind picture frames, inside air vents, under furniture. She knew what she was looking for. She found the first old camera on the living room bookshelf, held it up to examine, then ripped out the wiring with satisfaction. The second camera, hidden in a kitchen cupboard, came out minutes later. She immediately messaged someone, Marcus, presumably, with photos of her discoveries. He arrived that evening. I watched him inspect both cameras professionally, turning them over in his hands, nodding. Same models I saw weeks ago. His voice came through clearly on my apartment kitchen wall speaker. Consumer grade, clock camera. We're clear. Vanessa looked uncertain. You're sure? What if there are more? I've swept this place professionally. These were the only two. Trust me, I know what to look for. Over the following days, their behavior changed. More relaxed. Marcus started visiting during the day, when Derek was at work. They talked freely, touched naturally, acted like the house belonged to them. On a Thursday afternoon, 2 weeks after finding the old cameras, Marcus arrived at 2:15. Derek's shift didn't end until 6. Nearly 4 hours of privacy. Vanessa made coffee. They sat at the kitchen table, my kitchen table, and Marcus spread documents across the surface. The wall clock camera captured everything in perfect high definition. Okay, here's the play. Marcus's finger traced across the papers. Home equity line of credit, $275,000. With the house appraised at $850 and the mortgage paid off, that's barely a third of the equity. Banks love this. And Derek will agree. You'll convince him. Tell him I have investment opportunities. Real estate investments generating 30% returns. Tell him that's how real wealth is built. The guy works in IT, making $85 a year. He won't hesitate at the chance to make real money. Vanessa laughed. A sound without warmth. He's been skeptical about financial risks since his business failed. That's why he's still making $85 a year. Marcus leaned back in my chair, put his feet up on another. He's cautious, which makes him the easiest mark I've ever worked with. Cautious people want security so badly they'll believe anything that promises it. I can't believe he actually thinks you love him. Vanessa sipped her coffee. After everything, the romance evidence, the engagement party disaster, he still took me back. She shook her head, smiling. Naive doesn't even cover it. Pathetic is closer. Watching from my apartment, my hands clenched into fists, my jaw so tight my teeth ached. But I didn't look away. I needed to see all of it, hear all of it, document every word. Marcus pulled out more papers. Loan applications with signatures that looked like Derek's handwriting, but with subtle differences I recognized as forgeries. 6 months, Marcus continued. We get the loan, make a few small investments to establish the pattern, then you file for divorce. In Ontario, that loan money is marital property acquired during the marriage. You'll get half minimum, probably more with a good lawyer. And then Vancouver. New names, new lives. We'll have over $150,000 each, plus whatever you can get from the divorce settlement. Not bad for a year's work. They discussed details. Which bank to approach first. How Vanessa would present it to Derek. The timeline for the investments. The rental property in Vancouver that Marcus had already secured under a false name. When they mentioned Derek again, calling him a naive fool who deserved what was coming, I closed my eyes briefly. Not from weakness, but from the effort of remaining seated, of not driving back to that house, of remembering that rage accomplishes nothing without strategy. At 3:47, Marcus left. I was on the phone with David before his car cleared the driveway. I'm sending you a video. Watch it now. Vanessa and Marcus in my house planning to defraud my son for over $275,000. Silence on the other end as he pulled it up on his computer. Then a long exhale. Harold, this is exactly what we needed. Conspiracy to commit fraud, loan fraud, identity theft, if they use those false names. And the part about Derek, Hearing them mock him like that, will that be enough? Will this finally open his eyes? If this doesn't, nothing will. When do you want to show him? I looked at my laptop screen, frozen on an image of Vanessa and Marcus laughing at my kitchen table. The documents spread between them like blueprints for a heist. Soon. But first, I want to make sure we have everything locked down legally. I want them charged, David. Both of them. Criminal charges that stick. I saved the video to 3 separate cloud services, downloaded copies to 2 external drives, took screenshots of the most damning moments. Vanessa's face as she laughed about Derek thinking she loved him. Marcus's casual contempt. The forged loan applications visible on the table. Proof. Finally irrefutable. Derek was still at work, probably sitting in his office cubicle, reviewing server logs or troubleshooting network issues, not knowing that in a few days, his entire world would collapse again. But this time he would see the truth, not through his father's explanations, but through Vanessa's own words. She'd mocked him, called him pathetic, planned his financial destruction while she slept beside him every night, trusting and naive, and desperately wanting to believe in salvageable love. Part of me wanted to call him immediately, send him the video, force him to watch. But strategy mattered more than urgency. The Crown's office needed time to review. David needed to prepare, and I needed Derek to see this not as his father's attack, but as justice's revelation. Outside my apartment window, Toronto spread across the lakeshore in the evening light. Somewhere in that expanse, Vanessa and Marcus felt safe, successful, inches away from their biggest payday. They had no idea the walls had already closed around them. 2 days after obtaining the video, I texted Derek. Can we talk? Not about legal matters, just coffee. The place on Queen West, if you remember it. The coffee shop held history. Saturday mornings before Vanessa, Derek and I would meet there to talk about anything. Career decisions, hockey playoffs, nothing important at all. Just father and son sharing time. I didn't know if he'd respond. The next morning, I arrived early. Took the booth by the window, the one we always used. Ordered 2 black coffees before he arrived, the way we both drank them. No sugar, no cream. I checked my watch repeatedly. 9 o'clock became 9:15. Maybe he wouldn't come. Then, he appeared in the doorway. He looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, visible weight loss in his face and neck. He saw me, hesitated, then crossed the room and slid into the booth without speaking. I wasn't sure if I would come, he said finally. I'm glad you did. How are you? He laughed bitterly. That's a complicated question. Work is fine. Everything else? He fell silent, staring at his coffee. We talked carefully for 10 minutes. His latest project at work, a server migration that was causing headaches. The weather, traffic on the Gardiner, all safe, all meaningless. Then I placed my tablet on the table between us. Before you say anything, watch this. After you've seen it, if you want to leave, I'll understand. But you need to watch it. I'd cued the video, adjusted the volume just enough for him to hear, but not for other customers. I pressed play and turned the screen toward him. His face went through stages as he watched. First confusion. Vanessa and Marcus at the kitchen table. The documents spread between them. Then recognition as he understood what he was seeing. Horror. When Marcus mentioned the home equity loan amount, Vanessa's voice came through clearly. The guy works in IT, making $85 a year. He won't hesitate at the chance to make real money. Marcus's reply. He's cautious, which makes him the easiest Mark I've ever worked with. Derek leaned forward, riveted, as if proximity to the screen could change what was happening. Then Vanessa laughed, that particular sound that would haunt him, and said, I can't believe he actually thinks I love him. His hand trembled, his coffee cup rattling against the saucer, but he kept watching. When the video ended, silence. Derek stared at the blank screen for what seemed like a full minute. I didn't speak, didn't push, just waited. When was this? His voice came out cracked. Thursday afternoon, 4 days ago, while you were at work. She's been in my bed every night since then, smiling at me, kissing me, planning to steal from me. I'm sorry, son. I'm so sorry. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands, scrolled through messages, turned the screen toward me. A text from Vanessa, sent yesterday. Marcus mentioned some investment opportunities. Maybe we should talk again about that home equity line of credit. Could be our chance to really build something. She's actually doing it, Derek said. Everything they said in that video, she's doing it right now. What do you want to do? He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in weeks. What do I do, Dad? Tell me what to do. We can take this to the police right now, file formal charges, or you can go home and confront her yourself. But if you confront her first, she'll deny everything, maybe destroy evidence, probably disappear. We need to act legally and immediately if we want to stop this. Derek set his phone down carefully. She called me pathetic. She called me an idiot. She never loved me at all. No, son, she didn't. I'm sorry, but no. He sat there, processing, reconstructing his entire understanding of the past 2 years. Every memory now suspect. Every moment recategorized as manipulation. Let's go to the police, he said finally. I'll give a statement. I'll testify. Whatever you need. We left the coffee shop together and drove in separate vehicles to David's office downtown. He was waiting. I'd called him beforehand, told him Derek might be coming. His conference table was already set with documents. Derek, I need you to confirm some things for the record. David's voice was professional but kind. Did Vanessa discuss obtaining a home equity line of credit on the property? Yes. Several times. She said Marcus had investment opportunities that could generate 30% returns. She made it sound like a smart financial decision. And you agreed to this loan? No, I was considering it, but something felt wrong. I kept stalling. Now I know why. She was setting me up. David made detailed notes, had Derek sign an affidavit, prepared witness statements. Then we drove to the fraud division at police headquarters. Peter Chen met us there, guided us to an interview room with a recording device on the table. Mr. Mitchell, in your own words, describe your relationship with Vanessa Morrison and when the conversations about the loan began. Derek spoke clearly, his IT professional's mind organizing information even under emotional stress. He described meeting Vanessa 2 years ago, her moving in, the gradual introduction of Marcus as a financial advisor, the increasing pressure about the loan. Did she specifically mention Marcus Crawford in connection with these investments? Yes. She positioned him as a successful mortgage broker with excellent connections, someone who could help us build wealth. She made him sound professional, credible, not like. Derek paused. Not like what he actually was. The statement took an hour. When we emerged, Peter pulled me aside. The Crown Prosecutor's office is reviewing everything now. Your video, the phone transcripts, Derek's testimony. With Marcus's prior conviction and the parole violation, we've got him for certain. Vanessa too. By the end of the day, Peter called. We got approval. Warrants issued for both. Marcus Crawford for conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted identity theft, and parole violation. Vanessa Morrison as accomplice. We're also adding charges for the false assault report from the engagement party. I sat in my truck in the police station parking lot after everyone had left, watching the sunset over Toronto. Derek had driven back to work to finish his day, said he needed normalcy, needed to think. My phone vibrated. A text from Derek. Thank you for not giving up on me. I texted back. You're my son. I wasn't going to give up on you. Never. Justice was coming. But more important than any legal victory, more valuable than the house or the money or the vindication, I had my son back. The next morning, 2 officers from Toronto Police arrested Marcus Crawford at his mortgage brokerage office on Bloor Street. Peter called with the details. Got him this morning. Clean arrest. When we mentioned the parole violation, he went pale. He knows what that means. Real time in a federal institution. And Vanessa? Officers are heading to the house now. Derek's at work. He won't have to see it. Vanessa tried her usual tactics when the detectives arrived that afternoon. I learned about it later through Peter. The tears, the claims of victimization, the attempted manipulation. But these officers had seen the video evidence. They'd watched her mock Derek. They'd heard her plan the fraud. Ma'am, we have video evidence of you planning to defraud your fiancé for over $275,000. You need to come with us now. She was arrested and released on bail that night. But the legal momentum had shifted irreversibly. David filed an emergency eviction order. Within a week, a judge granted it. 2 weeks after the arrests, a sheriff's deputy from York Region supervised Vanessa's removal from my property. I stood in the driveway with David beside me as Vanessa emerged with 2 suitcases and a backpack. Everything she'd brought 2 years ago. The expensive clothes, the jewelry, all the possessions she'd accumulated, gone. Sold to pay her defense lawyer. She looked at me with pure hatred but said nothing. The deputy ensured she left without incident. Her car disappeared down the street, and the house was mine again. The court proceedings stretched through the winter and into spring. Marcus, facing overwhelming evidence and a parole violation, pleaded guilty in February. 3 years in a federal penitentiary. His prior conviction and the recorded conspiracy left him no defense. Vanessa fought longer, but eventually accepted a plea deal in April. 2 years probation, 300 hours of community service, $18,000 in restitution for my legal fees, and a permanent restraining order. The defamation lawsuit settled separately. She admitted the assault accusation was false, filed a written apology, paid an additional $12,000 in damages. By late April, Derek and I met with David and a real estate lawyer in a title company's office. Documents spread across the table, official and final. Dad, I want to sign this over to you completely. Derek's pen hovered over the deed transfer. It was always your house. I should never have let that accountant talk us into this arrangement. Derek, you're still my heir. When I'm gone, everything goes to you. That hasn't changed. I know, but while you're here, it should be yours. No complications, no joint ownership, just yours. He signed. The notary stamped. I was sole owner again. Then Derek pulled me into a brief, awkward hug. I'm sorry, Dad, for everything. For not believing you, for choosing her over you, for being the fool they said I was. You weren't a fool. You were a man who wanted to believe in love. That's not foolishness. That's human. She made me doubt you, my own father. I don't know if I can forgive myself for that. You don't need to forgive yourself. You just need to move forward. We both do. Derek had moved into his own apartment near his work, a small but decent place he paid for himself. Sunday dinners at my house became routine again. The first one was a bit forced, eaten mostly in silence. The second one included a conversation about work. By the third, we laughed at something on the television. Progress was gradual but real. In early May, I moved fully back into the house, changed all the locks, had the place professionally cleaned, opened every window to air out the residue of betrayal. I unpacked my boxes from the temporary apartment and reclaimed my space. The house felt like mine again. On a warm evening in mid-May, I sat on my back deck and watched the sunset paint the sky orange and purple over Lake Ontario in the distance. Spring was warming toward summer. The cardinals sang their evening song in the maple tree Margaret had planted 20 years ago. Derek's truck pulled into the driveway. He came around back carrying 2 cups of coffee from our Queen Street place. Our spot restored. He handed me one and sat in the second chair beside me. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the light fade from the sky. Thanks, Dad. His voice was quiet. For not giving up. On the house. On the legal fight. On me. You're my son. I wasn't going to give up on you. Never. I know that now. I should have known it then. More silence. Comfortable now. Not loaded with tension or unspoken accusations. Just father and son sharing space and time. The coffee's good, I said. Same place, same order. Some things should stay the same. The sunset shifted from orange to deep purple to dark blue. Lights flickered on across the neighborhood. Somewhere, Vanessa was serving her probation and learning that consequences were real. Marcus sat in a cell. His career destroyed, his freedom gone for years. The justice system had worked when presented with irrefutable evidence. But sitting there with my son, watching evening settle over the city, I realized that justice wasn't the real victory. The house wasn't the real victory. The legal triumph wasn't the real victory. Derek was the real victory. My son, healing enough to sit beside me. Our relationship damaged but mending, broken but not destroyed. He'd chosen truth over comfortable lies. He'd found the courage to face his mistakes and move forward. I put my hand on his shoulder briefly. He nodded, understanding everything I couldn't say. The cardinals sang. The coffee stayed warm, and after months of warfare, manipulation, and betrayal, there was finally peace. Not perfect peace. We both carried scars, but honest peace, built on truth and patience, and the refusal to give up on what mattered most. The house was mine. Justice had been served, and most importantly, I got my son back. That was enough. If you enjoyed this story, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear the next story, click the box on the left. Thanks for watching.